The Uber driver locked the doors the moment I sat down, and I didn't even have time to fasten my seatbelt before he whispered, his voice rough, strained, trembling in a way that made my skin crawl. "Whatever happens, don't look left." At first, I thought he was joking, a weird prank. But when I leaned forward to see his reflection, his face wasn't playful or strange or amused. He looked terrified. The kind of terror that doesn't come from a person, but from something they've already seen and wish they hadn't. I felt the air shift around me as if a cold gust of wind had slipped through the sealed car. The night outside was normal. A quiet residential neighborhood, dim streetlights, a couple walking a dog further down the street, and yet something in the driver's voice made the world feel instantly unsafe. "Sir, what's going on?" I asked, but my voice cracked. He didn't answer. He stared straight forward, both hands squeezing the wheel like he was bracing for an impact. Then it happened. A slow, soft, deliberate knock on the left window. 3 taps. Not loud, not aggressive, but wrong. So wrong my blood turned to ice. I froze. The driver inhaled sharply like someone had just plunged a knife into his spine. "Don't move," he said, barely audible. I swallowed, my throat dry, my breath stuck mid-chest. The knock came again, lighter this time, almost teasing, as if it knew it had our attention. My phone vibrated. A message. Unknown number. I felt dread coil in my stomach before I even looked at the screen. "Don't turn your head. It knows when you notice it." The driver asked, "Did you get the message?" I nodded. He exhaled shakily. "Good, then you understand." But I didn't understand anything. Not yet. The knocking stopped. Silence. A thick, heavy, unnatural silence that settled around the car like a fog. Then came the pressure. Something leaning against the car, shifting its weight. I heard the metal creak. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, something slid down the glass. Not a hand, not a claw, a shape. Like a long shadow dripping down the window, leaving no mark but somehow still visible. I clenched my eyes shut. The driver whispered, "It watches reflections. Don't give it yours." His voice broke. "Don't give it yourself." My heart hammered so hard it hurt. I didn't know if I could breathe without drawing attention to myself. Outside, the streetlights flickered. One by one, like something was walking past each pole. Something moving closer. Something that wasn't human. My phone buzzed again. "Don't look left. What you see will follow you home." I couldn't stop shaking. The driver reached into the glove compartment, hands trembling uncontrollably, and pulled out a small black device with a single red button. "This isn't standard Uber equipment," I muttered. He ignored me. "When I press it, hold on. It will react violently." "It?" He didn't answer. His silence was worse than words. The scraping on the window grew louder, a slow, grating sound, like nails being dragged across stone. Then something whispered, right through the glass. It wasn't English. It wasn't any language I knew. But the tone was hunger. The driver slammed the red button. A deafening, high-frequency screech filled the car, vibrating through my bones. The thing outside shrieked back, a sound so distorted and guttural it didn't seem possible something alive could make it. Suddenly the car shook violently. Something rammed into it. The entire left side dented inward with a thunderous crunch. The driver shouted, "Stay down." More hits. The glass cracked beside me. Spider webbing. The air filled with cold. Not normal cold, the kind that sinks into your lungs and burns. The tires screeched as the driver slammed the accelerator. The car shot forward, fishtailing as whatever was outside clawed at the metal. I screamed despite trying not to. Something slammed onto the roof hard enough to dent it. The metal bent inward like paper. The driver swerved, trying to shake it off. More lights flickered and died behind us as we sped down the street. We hit the avenue, cars around us honking, swerving. Normal. Human. Alive. Whatever was on the roof disappeared in an instant, like it had evaporated. The pressure vanished. The temperature normalized. The driver kept speeding until we reached a gas station filled with bright white LED lights. Only then did he stop. Only then did he unlock the doors. Only then did he finally speak. "You weren't supposed to get that car," he whispered. "It follows signals, calls, digital trails." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He looked at me with haunted, hollow eyes. "You didn't order this ride, did you?" My phone buzzed. A new message appeared. "Thank you for letting me ride with you. Such a warm soul." Then another message arrived immediately after. "Your Uber driver is arriving now." The driver beside me stiffened slowly. His lips trembled. "Then who?" he whispered, barely able to form the words. "Did you get in the car with?" Before I could answer, the gas station lights flickered. Once, twice, then they went out. The Uber driver locked the doors the moment I sat down, but I didn't notice it at first because I was too exhausted to pay attention to anything except the blurry neon reflections sliding across the rain-smeared window beside me, each one stretching like a ribbon of electric color melting into the night. I leaned back, closed my eyes for a second, and let out a sigh that felt like it carried the weight of the entire day. But then the driver shifted slightly toward the left mirror, his shoulders tensing, his breath catching in a way so sharp it felt like the air inside the car had suddenly frozen. Without turning his head fully, without raising his voice, he whispered, "Whatever happens, don't look left." At first I thought I had misheard him, or that maybe he was talking to someone through an earpiece. But then I looked up and saw his eyes in the rearview mirror, wide, dark, trembling with a fear so raw it punched straight through my fatigue. "Don't look left," he repeated, quieter, faster, his lips barely moving. Something cold slid down my spine, like a drop of ice water. I stopped breathing, my hand frozen halfway toward the window button. And then 3 soft knocks tapped against the glass inches from my ear. Not loud, not aggressive, but slow and deliberate, each one vibrating faintly through the car door. Knock. Pause. Knock. Pause. Knock. My entire body turned to stone. The driver's fingers tightened around the steering wheel, his knuckles whitening as he whispered, "Don't move." The light ahead of us glowed red, casting a bloody tint across his face. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, each beat louder than the last. The knocking came again, slightly harder this time, the rhythm too calm, too expectant, as if whoever or whatever stood outside wasn't trying to get my attention, but waiting for me to give it voluntarily. I stared straight ahead, forcing my eyes to stay fixed on the glowing traffic light. Finally, the red flickered to yellow, then green, and the driver slammed his foot onto the pedal so violently that the tires screeched on the wet pavement and the car shot forward like a slingshot released. I stumbled sideways from the force, grabbing the seat in front of me to steady myself. The driver didn't look back. He didn't speak. He only checked the mirrors again and again, his breath shallow and shaky. "What the hell was that?" I finally whispered, my voice hoarse. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. Rain streaked across the windshield in frantic diagonal lines as the wipers struggled to keep up. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded like it had been scraped raw. "You didn't look," he said. "Good. That might have saved your life." My skin prickled with cold confusion. "What was out there?" I whispered. His eyes darted to the mirror again. "You don't want to know." But I did. God, I did. I could still feel the echo of those knocks inside my bones. He took a shaky breath. "There are people who don't belong here. Not anymore. People who you shouldn't look at directly. People who—" He trailed off, gripping the wheel tighter. "People who look normal until you see their face. Then you realize it's not a face at all." My stomach twisted. "What was knocking on my window?" I asked. "It wasn't knocking to get your attention. It was knocking to get your permission." The street lamp overhead flickered as we sped beneath it, casting the interior of the car in a stuttering pattern of light and shadow. The driver inhaled sharply. "Why me?" I managed to ask. "It wasn't you," though his voice didn't sound convinced. "I saw it first." Before I could respond, the car slowed, not because he braked, but because something stepped into the road ahead. Something tall, something wet, something standing perfectly still with its head tilted too far to one side. Rain dripped down its clothing in slow, heavy drops. The driver's hands trembled. "Don't look at its face," he whispered. As the car rolled to an involuntary stop, the figure in front of us didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even seem to breathe. It just stood there in the middle of the flooded road, like a discarded shadow that had decided to stand upright, its limbs too long, its clothes clinging to its body in a way that looked like they'd been soaked for much longer than the rainstorm outside had existed. And even though the windshield wipers kept swiping frantically, the water on the glass seemed to smear around the silhouette instead of clearing it, as though the figure itself distorted the space it occupied. The driver let out a sound, half gasp, half whimper, then pressed his palm to his forehead as if trying to keep something inside from breaking loose. "Don't look at its face. Don't," he repeated, his voice shaking so violently it almost cracked. But the problem was that the thing wasn't moving, and we couldn't go around it without scraping against the guardrail. And the longer we sat there, the heavier the air inside the car became, thick like fog settling in my lungs, like something unseen was crawling through the ventilation system and sliding into the spaces between my ribs. My fingers curled into fists against my thighs. "What does it want?" I whispered, barely able to shape the words. "It waits," the driver said, gripping the wheel so tight his hands turned ghost pale. "They always wait." The figure's head twitched, just a millimeter, but enough to make me flinch. The movement wasn't human. It was like the head was an object being rotated by some invisible mechanical hinge. Then came a soft sound on the window behind me. Tap. Then another. Tap. Tap. Each one too gentle, yet each one landing so precisely that my skin tightened with panic. "There's another one," the driver whispered. The tapping grew faster, more insistent, but never loud, almost polite, almost rhythmic, like a fragile invitation wrapped in danger. "Why can't I look?" I whispered. The driver's eyes were fixed on the figure in front of us, reflecting it like a trembling mirror. "Because if you look at its face, it sees you." My breath caught. "But it's already here." "Seeing is different," he said. "Looking is permission." The tapping behind me suddenly stopped. Silence pulsed in the car. Even the rain outside seemed to hold its breath. Then, at my left ear, so close I could feel the vibration on the glass, something dragged its knuckles slowly, painfully slowly across the window. Scrape. Like it was tracing the outline of where my face would be if I turned. "Drive," I hissed, fear clawing its way up my throat. "I can't," the driver whispered, eyes filling with tears. "I can't go through it, and if I reverse, the one behind us will block the road." His breath hitched. "They never come alone." The scraping stopped. The figure in front of us tilted its head further, so far that I heard the faint pop of something shifting unnaturally, like bones bending in ways they shouldn't. My entire skull felt like it was filling with ice. "Okay," I whispered. "Then what do we do?" The driver swallowed hard. "We wait. For them to choose." My stomach flipped. Choose what? Whether we leave here or stay. The figure's arm began to rise. Jerky. Wrong. Like a puppet being pulled by tangled strings. It lifted its hand toward its own face, fingers trembling, shaking water droplets into the air. And then with its fingertips, it began to peel. Not skin, not fabric, something else, something thin and wet and glistening, like a layer of darkness being pulled back to reveal something deeper inside. The driver squeezed his eyes shut. "Don't look. No matter what, don't." But the peeling continued, slow and deliberate, as though the creature was preparing to show us what lay behind the mask it wore. And even though I kept my eyes fixed on the dashboard, I could feel it. The pull, the pressure, like invisible fingers guiding my chin toward the left, coaxing me to look, urging me to meet the face I must never see. I clenched my teeth so hard my jaw ached, fighting the magnetic pull that seemed to nudge my head, gently at first, then with a firmer, almost persuasive insistence, like a cold hand pressing against my cheek and trying to guide it leftward while the driver's breath came out in shallow, broken bursts as he repeated a shaky prayer under his breath in a language I didn't recognize, the syllables tumbling out like frantic keys trying to unlock a door that wasn't supposed to be opened. In the air inside, the car grew impossibly heavy, thick like invisible threads, stretching across my skin and trying to bind themselves into something tangible. The creature in front of us had stopped peeling whatever layer it was removing from its face, but I could feel its attention sharpening, narrowing, focusing on us with a pressure so intense it felt like the roof of the car was bending inward. Then, from the left window, where I refused to look, I heard a sound I will never forget, a faint, breathy exhale against the glass, not warm, but cold. So cold it spread through the window pane like frost unfurling in slow motion. The driver squeezed the steering wheel again, and his knuckles went white. "It's marking us," he whispered. "Why?" My own voice shook so violently it didn't sound human. He shuddered, then said, "Because it wants to know which one to take." My blood turned into ice water. I could feel the presence outside leaning closer, the air tightening around my head, the tapping returning, not with fingers this time, but something broader, heavier, like a palm pressing softly against the glass, as if measuring me. "Don't react," the driver breathed. "It senses fear." "I am afraid," I whispered. "Then lie to it," he said through clenched teeth. A vibration rippled through the car, deep, low like a distant roaring underwater. The creature in front of us slowly lowered its arm, and for a moment I thought maybe, somehow, the danger was passing. But then, the dashboard lights flickered. Once, twice, then began pulsing in a slow, synchronized rhythm, the same rhythm the tapping on the window followed, as if the car itself had been wired into some dark frequency emanating from the figures outside. The driver swore under his breath and tried to turn the key, but the engine didn't even attempt to start. No click, no sputter, nothing. The car had gone dead. A sudden gust of wind slammed against us, though the rain outside remained eerily straight, untouched by any breeze. "It's choosing," the driver said, his voice dropping to a hollow whisper. The figure in front of us tilted its head again, but this time it didn't stop. Its neck bent further, past what should have been possible, until its head hung at an upside-down angle, staring at us from beneath a veil of wet, stringy hair that clung to its twisted features. I squeezed my eyes shut, but even with them closed, I could feel its gaze like pins pressing against my eyelids. Then something touched the car's roof, lightly, almost curiously. A second tap, then a third, then more, like fingertips crawling across metal. The driver inhaled sharply. There are more now. The tapping above us multiplied, becoming a soft, synchronized pattering like rain that had learned to think. My heart pounded so loud I thought the creatures could hear it. The driver's hand slid slowly toward the gear shift, moving inch by terrified inch. "What are you doing?" I breathed. "If they want to choose," he whispered. "I won't let them." Before I could ask what he meant, he slammed the car into reverse. The entire car jolted violently, and the tapping on the roof exploded into a frenzy, the metal vibrating like something was crashing its full weight onto it. The driver hit the gas. The vehicle lurched backward, but suddenly stopped with a bone-jarring shudder, like something enormous had grabbed the back bumper. I heard the unmistakable sound of fingers, dozens of them curling around metal. The driver's scream was raw, primal. The car shook. And then, from the left side where I still refused to look, a whisper came through the window. Soft, deliberate, impossibly close. "Look at me." The whisper crawled into my ear like a thread of ice, thin but sharp, a voice that didn't sound like a voice at all, more like the echo of something that had lived in darkness long before humans learned to speak, and every instinct inside me screamed to clamp my hands over my ears, to curl into myself and vanish. But I couldn't move, not even a finger, as if the sound had frozen my nerves mid-breath. The driver beside me was trembling so violently, the whole seat shook, his lips moving soundlessly as he tried to pray again, but no sound came out, because whatever was outside wasn't just knocking or tapping, it was pulling us into its atmosphere, dragging our minds towards its center, like a black hole disguised as a whisper, drawing from us the one thing it needed: attention. The car, still half-stalled in the muddy road, groaned under the pressure of whatever held the back bumper, and the metal began to bend, the sound high and strained, like something was trying to peel the car open from behind. The rain outside had slowed to a strange synchronized drizzle, each drop falling with the exact same weight and rhythm, like the entire world had become a metronome keeping time for something waiting to emerge. My jaw clenched as the whisper came again, this time sliding along the window like cold breath made of static. "Look, and I'll let you go." I felt my head twitch without meaning to, my chin tilting a fraction toward the forbidden direction, and the driver threw his hand out blindly, seizing my arm with desperate force. "Don't," he hissed, though his voice cracked on the word as if simply saying it was dangerous. "If you look, it won't let go. Ever." The roof of the car bowed inward for a moment, creaking under pressure from above, then sprang back. Something scuttled across it, fast, too fast, like limbs bending backward, scraping metal with bone. I squeezed my eyes shut, but even then I felt the presence on the other side of the window. A shape pressed close enough that its outline seeped through the darkness behind my eyelids, as if its shadow could imprint itself on my mind without being seen. "Why us?" I whispered, my voice barely a thread. The driver inhaled sharply. "It follows cars, roads, travelers, anyone who moves at night alone." His grip on my arm tightened painfully. "But it only needs one." "One what?" The word barely left my lips before the thing on the left window exhaled again, and this time frost bloomed across the glass in a perfect circle, like a mouth. Then something dragged across the window from the outside, a fingernail or claw, scratching a slow, deliberate line downward, tracing where my jaw would be if I turned. "It's marking you," the driver whispered, his voice breaking. "Stop," I began, but the scratch deepened, the sound drilling into my skull like someone was carving my name in a language I didn't know. The figure in front of the car suddenly jerked its head upward. The unnatural angle snapped back into place as if rewinding movement, then raised both of its arms and placed its hands on the hood, pressing down. The car dipped forward with a metallic groan, and the headlights flickered wildly, illuminating the soaked, distorted shape that now leaned closer, closer, as if trying to peer through the glass and see which of us flinched first. The air in the car tightened like a fist closing around my lungs. Something tapped the trunk, 3 times, slow and decisive. "That's the signal," the driver whispered, and I felt the blood drain from my face. "Signal, sir, what?" I asked, though I already knew I didn't want the answer. He swallowed hard. "For it to choose." Silence fell, heavy and absolute. The creature on the hood froze, the scratching at my window halted, even the storm seemed to pause, the world holding its breath. Then with the sound like wet fabric sliding over glass, something lowered itself toward my window, its presence pressing so close I felt its weight on the air itself, and in a voice that was not quite outside, not quite inside, something whispered my name. When it spoke my name, the sound didn't pass through my ears so much as bloom directly beneath my skull, like a whisper carried on the inside surface of my bones. and the realization that it knew me, truly knew me, not just as a passenger in a car, but as something it had been waiting for, sent a violent shiver down my spine, freezing every breath I tried to take. The driver, hearing it too, lurched forward with a strangled cry and slammed both hands against the dashboard as though bracing himself against a force he expected to hit us at any moment. And outside, the figure on the hood straightened its warped spine slowly, like a marionette being tugged upright by invisible strings. Its movements sharp and stuttered and ancient, nothing like anything that belonged to a human world. The rain had completely stopped now, hanging mid-air like suspended beads of glass, each droplet frozen as if time itself had been paused by whatever surrounded us. And the headlights shone through them in fractured beams that made the world look like a shattered photograph. The whisper repeated my name, so soft, so intimate, so impossibly near my left ear, and this time it dragged the syllables out a little longer, savoring them, tasting them, as though claiming something it believed already belonged to it. I choked on a gasp. "Why is it saying my name?" I rasped, my voice trembling so hard it was barely sound at all. The driver didn't answer. His eyes were wide, unblinking, reflecting the silhouette on the hood like two small mirrors filled with horror. "You didn't tell me your name," he finally managed, his voice cracking. "I never heard you say it." "I didn't," I whispered. The creature outside shifted again, and a long, wet sound of sliding skin followed, like something dragging itself closer along the glass. A shadow stretched across the window, long fingers, too thin, tapping once, twice, as though impatient for me to turn. The driver suddenly reached across me and grabbed the wheel with both hands, as if some instinct had taken over, some final surge of terrified determination. "Don't move," he said, shaking uncontrollably. "It called you, not me." "What does that mean?" The question left my mouth before I could stop it. He answered with a whisper so faint I almost didn't hear it. "It means it has decided." The world outside pulsed, once, like a heartbeat felt through the air instead of the earth. The droplets suspended in the air trembled imperceptibly. The figure on the hood leaned closer, bending forward as though gravity pulled differently for it, its head nearing the windshield until only a few inches of glass separated us. I kept my eyes locked on the dashboard, refusing to look, but I could feel its presence, like heat, or the absence of heat, pressing through the glass. Something shifted again on my left, brushing the window in a slow, deliberate caress, as if it were tracing where my face would be if I finally obeyed its call. The driver squeezed his eyes shut. "Don't listen," he said, though his voice sounded more like a plea than a command. "Don't answer it. Don't acknowledge it." But acknowledging it was impossible to avoid when it whispered my name again. This time, not gentle, but urgent, stretched with hunger, as if the patience it had been practicing was thinning with every second I resisted. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst. The tapping at my window grew firmer, more insistent. The entire car shuddered as the thing gripping the bumper tightened its hold. "Why me?" I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of terror. The driver swallowed so slowly it was painful to watch. "They choose the one who looks the easiest to take." I shook my head, tiny movements, frantic. "I'm not looking." "Looking isn't the only way," he whispered. "Fear is also looking. Inside." A cold breath slid across the back of my neck, from inside the car, but nothing was behind me. I froze completely, my blood turning into something thick and unmoving. The driver's eyes widened as he saw the color drain from my face. "You feel it, don't you? Inside the car." It's in here," I choked. He nodded once, tears filling his eyes. "It always enters once the choice is made." The shadow on the hood shifted, and the shape outside my window leaned closer, the glass groaning under its weight, and from just behind my shoulder, right in the space between the seat and the darkness, came a whisper so quiet it almost wasn't sound at all, a whisper that shouldn't have been possible because nothing was there, nothing could be there, yet it breathed one single word, with absolute certainty, the word that shattered whatever illusion of safety the car had left. "Turn." When I entered that room, the air felt thick, as if filled with something invisible, as if the very shadow of the house was watching my every step, waiting for the right moment to reveal what I wasn't yet ready to know. But the knowledge was already close, breathing down my neck. I felt the walls narrowing, as if the house itself wanted to push me forward, to make me see the truth that had been carefully hidden from me for months. The voices in the hallway fell silent, leaving me alone with a deafening quiet, and my heart was pounding so loudly it felt like it was trying to break free. I knew I had to go further, but every cell in my body resisted, trying to hold me back from stepping into a reality I could no longer undo. I reached for the doorknob, cold as metal and frost, and only when my fingers closed around it did I realize how much I was shaking. But I opened the door anyway, before fear could reach my throat. No one was there, only the scent of someone else's perfume, sweet and heavy, lingering in the air as if the person had been here just seconds ago and vanished as quickly as if they had never existed. But the main thing, the envelope, was on the table. That very one. White, thick, with my name written in a handwriting I had seen before but could not quite remember. I reached out slowly as if afraid it would vanish like a mirage, like a dream at dawn, but it didn't. I took it. When the paper touched my skin, a cold electric jolt ran down my spine, as if warning me, do not open it, as if the universe itself tried to stop me. But I tore the edge anyway, one motion. The paper inside was folded neatly, almost perfectly. I unfolded it, and the first thing that caught my eye were the words, "It's time for you to know what he has been hiding." My pulse quickened. If you are reading this, it means he has already lost. He. Who was he? I reread it several times, trying to grasp the meaning, but the lines seemed like a code slipping away from comprehension. Open the trap door in the old bedroom. What you'll find there will change everything. The signature was just one letter, L, a letter that tore through my memory. Leah, his sister, the one he never mentioned, the one he claimed had been gone for years, dead many years ago. I sank into a chair, feeling the floor slightly give beneath me, though I wasn't sure if it was the house or myself. So she's alive, or was the letter written long ago? But the handwriting was fresh, the ink hadn't faded. Leah, a ghost, a shadow of his past, a shadow that suddenly pulled me toward the trap door, like the mouth of something dark, something people don't talk about even to those they love, if they love them at all. I stood up, and the house seemed to hold its breath. The old bedroom had been kept locked. He had said it was filled with childhood belongings he didn't want to see, but now I knew. This was a lie. His whole life was woven from lies, thread by thread, until one day they began unraveling right before my eyes. The bedroom door opened with a dull creak, as if the room itself was surprised by an uninvited guest. Dust hung in the air like fog. On the floor, a worn rug, frayed in places. In the corner, a wooden trap door. The one. I approached, feeling fear and determination struggle for control inside me, but fear receded. I needed to know. I leaned down and lifted the cover. The smell of old paper and something else, something metallic, hit my nose. A staircase led down into darkness. But I descended, step by step. Here it smelled of dampness, time, and secrets that had been locked away for too long. I turned on my phone's flashlight. The beam revealed a small room. In the center, a table. On it, stacks of journals. And photos. Many photos. The first, him, my husband, only much younger, with eyes that held neither warmth nor kindness, the eyes I had come to know now. The second, him with Leah. She was alive, looking straight at the camera, as if she knew I would one day see this. And the third, him with another woman. Hands around her waist, happiness on their faces, and behind the frame, a child. A boy. Small. His face was blurred by movement, but we both knew whose eyes he had. I felt the ground slip beneath me. The journals lay beside them, and I knew they contained answers.
Maybe questions I didn't even suspect. I opened the first page. If someone is reading this, it means Leia has already told the truth. It means everything is out. I tried to keep it secret. I had to. For her. For them. I could not let her know the truth. She wouldn't survive it. She was me. He was writing about me. But if everything has fallen apart, then I have nothing left to lose. I continued reading, feeling the words pierce me like sharp edges. Leia was right. It was my choice. I made it long ago, before I met her, before I loved her. Loved? That word sounded like a mockery. But the past never dies. It just waits. I already knew I had to open the rest of the journals. But at that moment, a sound came from above. The floor creaked, the very same sound I heard that night. Someone was in the house. I turned off the flashlight. My heart froze. And once again, the silence became alive.
I froze in the darkness, listening to every creak and rustle. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst from my chest. The footsteps above had stopped, but the feeling of being watched didn't fade. Someone was still there. I slowly stood, careful not to make a sound, and approached the table with the journals. Flipping through the pages, I saw the final entries. He had written everything about his secret sister, the child, how the past had haunted him every day. And there was one more note, addressed to me. If you have reached this point, it means the truth can no longer be stopped. I loved her, but now everything depends on you. Please protect them, even if it will be hard. And remember, the past never disappears. It only waits to be seen. I set the journal down, tears streaming down my face. The darkness around me didn't feel so terrifying anymore. Now I knew I held control in my own hands. All that remained was to understand what to do next. I raised the flashlight, aimed it at the staircase, and slowly stepped forward, each movement measured, ready to face whatever awaited me below.